last section, the last lecture, we were talking about the arts in the Republic. And of course, as you know, they were arithmetic, geometry, solid geometry, astronomy, harmony, and the dialectic. Now, when he talks about this highest art, because all of these have to come together and their kinship must be discovered. You must discover their kinship and community, why they are all together and why they should be studied together in a kinship. When that's done, you can then enter into the dialectic. Now, when he talks about the dialectic, we now are given a chance to go back into the allegory, because when he does that, he is then going to establish a clear marking of the stages. He's going to rethink this whole thing for us and then cut it up in very interesting and precise ways. And therefore, if you're wondering about how do you decide on where you can make these marks, that's easy. We get it right out of the text. Then we're following Plato's understanding. And notice the way he cuts it up. He has the most interesting way. Can I write that down? Get it? Yes. Okay. Let me first go to that idea of kinship and community for a moment so that we're together. If indeed our examination of all of these arts which we have been discussing brings us to consider the community and kinship between them, and if it shows in what way they are related to one another, then I think the study of them does bring us a bit towards what we want, and our labor is not in vain. But otherwise it is. Therefore the goal is to find the community and kinship between them and to see how they're related to one another. That's a gigantic task, says Glaucon. He says, we do it, it's all right. He says, but all of this is just a preamble. It's just a preamble to get into the most interesting and the complex and the most meaningful study, which is the dialectic. He calls that the coping stone, right? That centerpiece in an arc. That's what the dialect is. It's that key block. Now, when he does it, he's going to go back into the allegory, and by going back into the allegory, he's going to divide it up into the stages. Now, then we can see that these are stages experienced through the dialectic, and that's what the allegory of the cave is going to represent. Because it's the stages of entering into the soul, into the higher region, the intelligible region, and that's nothing other than becoming fully conscious of the nature of mind itself. Let's see how he does it. Then, my dear Glaucon, this is the law at last which the dialectic brings out to its final meaning, and which, being the law of mind, would have a likeness in the power of sight as we described it. To look at last upon living things themselves, and the stars themselves, 2, finally upon the sun itself, 3, Just when a man tries by discussion to get a start towards towards the real thing through reason without any help from the senses, when he tries to grasp by thought alone the real nature of the good itself and arrives at the very end of the world of thought, as before what we said was the end of the world of sight, Glaucon says, hey, don't you give the name dialectic to this progress of thought? Oh yeah, yeah. Excuse me. Socrates says that. Glaucon says, yeah, that's what we call it. All right, now he goes back. We have those 4 stages. He's now going to subdivide them. He's going to subdivide them. Well, there was a release from the chains. 1. Turning away from the shadows to the images. And the light. And an upward passage from the underground to the sun. 5. And there's still no ability to look at living things and plants and sunlight, but only upon godlike reflections in the water. 6. And the shadows of real things. 7. Not now shadows of images cast from another light, which is compared with the sun as shadowy as they were. All this diligent study of the arts, those we have been discussing, has this power. What power? A power to stirring up and bringing out the best of the soul to survey the best of things which really are. Just as there it brought the clearest thing in the body to survey the most brilliant things in the bodily world of vision. What do we've got? We have 7 stages. He gave us 7 stages of the dialectic. We can then go back into it now and feel we now have a basis for cutting it up precisely the way he wants us to do it. Each one of them, therefore, is a stage of dialectic, since dialectic is a way of challenging yourself or another to enter into the game of reason, to try to understand most fully, systematically, the nature of mind. We then see there are 7 stages in that process. He breaks it up into 4. Remember, the earlier categories were 4? Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4. Understanding, belief, and image thinking. Those are the 4, within which you can find 7 stages. That's what he's telling us. What are you doing? That's the way the soul enters into the world of mind, or the intelligible reality. It must go through these 4. He calls them each of these things. He says it again and again and again. Therefore, the goal of the dialectic is to be able to give an account of each one of these 4: image thinking, belief, understanding, knowing. Yeah, yes, excuse me.
This idea of the good, I got lost there.
Yeah.
I missed it.
No, I didn't. We haven't touched it.
Oh, okay.
So you're great. So, but ask your question anyhow. Now, see, there's a difference in Plato between the idea of the good and the good. The idea of the good is the 8th ox herding picture. 8th ox herding picture.
Oh, okay.
Right? And the good itself is the 10th. Right? In the 8th ox herding picture, it's represented by a circle. That's all, right? Just a circle.
What picture?
If you're familiar, the Chinese developed originally pictures of searching for a lost ox to represent the journey of man seeking the nature of the true self. They developed 6 pictures that represent each of the stages in the unfoldment of that insight into the nature of oneself. Then when it moved to Japan, they added 4 more, so it's called the 10 ox herding pictures. And they are, interestingly enough, 8